Hello, good evening. Welcome to the first debate of term. This house believes that the Catholic Church is a force for good in the world. As you may have noticed, these people are not adults, and this is not the first main debate. This is the first emergency debate, which is titled, "This House Regrets Going to Cambridge." Exam term themed. Brilliant, okay. So, without further ado, I'll explain how this is going to work. We're going to have 4 speeches, 5 minutes each for each of the people there. We're going to have 1 speech on proposition, 1 speech on opposition, and then we'll have the opportunity for people from the floor to give floor speeches. What I'll do is I'll ask for points in proposition, opposition, and abstention. If you put your hand up and wait for a mic to reach you, then please keep your points to about a minute at most. If you're not funny, then less. If you wish to interrupt one of the speakers whilst they're speaking, stand up, say, point of information. They'll say, "Oh, yes, please," or "No, sit down," or as usually happens. And then, accordingly, again, wait for a mic to reach you, and if they've accepted your point, then you can say something short, witty, and acerbic to cut down their argument in its path. Brilliant, okay. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce the first speaker on proposition, Charlie Palmer. Charlie is a third-year classicist from Peterhouse, and I asked them all to give me a fun fact. You said Trinity. He's Peterhouse. I'm good at this. Trinity, yeah, great. Should we go? Yeah, let's do that. Brilliant.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I regret going to Cambridge. I'm going to frame this with several quotes from respected authors. "For Cambridge people rarely smile," once Rupert Brooke said. "For Cambridge people rarely smile, being urban, squat, and packed with guile." All 3 of these are true. Cambridge is urban. Cambridge is squat in some way. And Cambridge is packed with guile. Cambridge, I tell you today, ladies and gentlemen, is packed with more guile than Manchester City left-back Guile Clichy. And there is no end to their mischief and scheming. The other day, I left my Facebook logged on, ladies and gentlemen. I innocently left my Facebook logged on, and a friend, a Cambridge student no less, typed something on my Facebook as though it were me to make me look bad. And all my friends thought I was being silly when in fact the reverse was true. Guile, ladies and gentlemen. And it was Houseman that said, "I find Cambridge an asylum in every sense of the word." And what I think Houseman had not considered were the far-reaching implications of his phrase, "every sense of the word," ladies and gentlemen. For the 2 main meanings he could surely have been referring to were an asylum as a sort of haven and an asylum as a place in which to put the insane. But I put it to you tonight, ladies and gentlemen, that Houseman was also, whether consciously or not, referring with remarkable foresight to the 1972 film Asylum, starring Peter Cushing and Britt Ekland, about an asylum in which a guy makes a mannequin that comes to life and stabs someone with a scalpel. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the essence of Cambridge. That mannequin is a metaphor, ladies and gentlemen, for Cambridge because it stabs you with a scalpel that is a metaphor and not real. Ladies and gentlemen. "The dons of Oxford and Cambridge are too busy educating the young men to be able to teach them anything," said Samuel Butler once. And you might think, well, that's a stupid comment, Samuel Butler, because teaching and educating mean the same thing. What an idiot. But I put it to you tonight, ladies and gentlemen, that Samuel Butler said these words because he was educated at Cambridge, and that was what caused him to make such a moronic comment. I did some research for this debate. You might be surprised. I looked up the mission of the University of Cambridge. It's on their website, their mission and core values. And the mission of the University of Cambridge, ladies and gentlemen, is, and I quote, to contribute to society through the pursuit of education, learning, and research at the highest international levels of excellence. Picture the scene, if you will. Tom Cruise is on a plane. Bear with me. Tom Cruise is on a plane. The screen in front of his seat switches on, and a besooted old man appears in front of him and says, Tom. Tom says, hi, besooted old man. He says, I have a name. Tom says, right, Brian. And the besooted old man says, your mission, Tom, should you choose to accept it, is to contribute to society through the pursuit of education, learning, and research at the highest international levels of excellence. And Tom says, what kind of bullshit mission is that? That's not what I signed up for. It's not impossible. It's eminently feasible. And the guy's like, just do it. You're getting paid. And Tom goes, fine. But he doesn't like it, ladies and gentlemen. He likes it not one bit. Thank you. You've probably heard, ladies and gentlemen, about the fact that Trinity College has bought drones with which it bombs Pakistan. And that's now off. But what you may not know, ladies and gentlemen, is that in these drones are children. How was that point? And you may not know some of the more sinister practices that this university engaged in with Newman's College, for instance, as a gang of people that roam the streets with knives, just like knifing people, like a lot of people. All the time. There we go. And Girton, ladies and gentlemen, are building a new generation of super soldier out of used car parts and bits of pork pie. You didn't know that, did you? No, because the university has censored you. And I leave you with this, ladies and gentlemen. This you will not have heard. The Vice-Chancellor of Cambridge University, the Vice-Chancellor himself, the figurehead of our great university, supposedly, I heard from a reliable source that he drinks the blood of hamsters he has sacrificed to the great god Imhotep. Thank you very much.
Thanks to Charlie for that salient and timely speech. Next up on opposition, we have Patrick Brooks. Patrick is also a classicist. This will be a running theme tonight, and he is pooled at Fitzwilliam. Welcome, Patrick.
Hello. That was a lovely speech from Charlie there. Greatly enjoyable, a little bit flippant, I thought, for this wonderful place. I think the problem with Charlie's speech, in a nutshell, many problems. The main problem was that he kind of undermined himself simply because his speech was quite good. I don't think you can, he researched it. It had lots of lovely little flourishes, and went surreal. And I don't think someone who went to a bad university would be able to come up with something like that. So, why? Surely you should have made your speech shit, so that what missed opportunity there, Charlie? Yeah.
My speech was quite shit.
Again, backing me up. You got a room of people to laugh and clap. You're not helping yourself. It's your education. You say, you try. With your, you're a stupid man. Naturally, but 3 years. You're a third year. 3 years, almost 3 years of really good education has, despite your best efforts, managed to make you relatively cogent. It's impressive. You quoted. You can read. Probably Cambridge, thanks to that. I'll move away from Charlie now. It's not a good place to be. I did a bit of research for this on my phone. I have here the motto of our illustrious university. It's in Latin. I'm a classicist, so I thought, why not? Hinc lucem et pocula sacra. Okay. I had to look up what it meant because I'm a bad classicist. And it means, literally, from here, light and little cups. That's a literal translation, okay? Now, I think some monk sat down in Trinity and thought, you know what? We're a fucking good university. We can just put some words together that are Latin and people won't even check it. And they did. Yeah. You see, Cambridge, I mean, I don't need to make the arguments. You're all here. It's a bit shit sometimes, but it's mostly quite good, you know. There are 5,999 members of staff just for you. Okay, that's how many members of staff there are. Not 6,000, 5,999 exactly. Wikipedia told me that. Yes?
The Nazis had a lot of staff.
Okay. Well, so there's lots of support. There's a genuine point, you know, away from this. My parents went bankrupt in Lent. We had to tear up the credit cards. It was quite sad. No holiday for us. But I sent my college a quick email to explain the situation, and the next day in my pigeonhole there was a letter saying that I had a grant, a hardship grant. And the best thing about it, apart from the fact that it was free money, was that it was written in Comic Sans, and it really cheered me up. It was amazing. That kind of thing. You know, there is support here. You know, this is, you know, ironically, this is probably the place in the world to study where it's easiest in terms of monetary costs to come here. But of course, the richest people come here. So, you know, it's a little bit weird. But if people were hard off, then it's fine. Another thing. Let's say that Cambridge is a bad thing, which it is in some parts, especially because Charlie is involved, or at least for another term. Eh? Bad things aren't necessarily to be regretted. You know, I was cycling once when I was about 8, and I crashed, and I learned a lot from that. You know, I learned that you know, pain happens, and we have to get through pain. And even if these 3 years are the worst of your life, Charlie, you'll go on to be a better man. You know, a little bit better. But ultimately, I think Cambridge is a place where we come to think about life and about you know, getting drunk with friends. I mean, you can do that at other universities, but at Cambridge you can get drunk, and we drink wine here. We drink wine. No other. They don't drink wine anywhere else. Okay. Thanks for that. That was great. This is fun. I really enjoyed this. You can't do this anywhere else. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. I actually I asked Patrick here because he wrote a really great article for the Tab called "I Fucking Love Cambridge," and I thought he'd be good. Something like that. And I was mistaken. Right. Great, floor round time, brilliant. So if you'd like to make a point in proposition, according to the metric which I laid out earlier, please put your hand up. Nobody. We've really inspired people tonight. Is there anyone who'd like to make a point in proposition? You don't have to be funny. Could just be really serious. There we go.
Thank you. I do this out of necessity. I am a finalist reading law at Trinity after having defected from Oxford, and to my Cambridge friends I tell them I'm upgrading by having come here, and to my Oxford friends I told them that I wanted to get a proper job after graduating, and the truth is somewhere in between. But I have to speak on behalf of the proposition because as wonderful as Cambridge is, having gone to the other place beforehand, I have to say it's so much more fun. And that is what I deeply regret. Since I've been here, I've received a far superior education. I've worked 3 times as hard, had 1/3 the sex, no drugs. The students are a lot less promiscuous. I've only been invited to 4 cocktail parties, in the last 2 years. And to wear cravats here is just, it's not done. It's quite disappointing. At Oxford, half of my friends had little teddy bears named Aloysius. Only one does here. I won't say who. Might be incriminating. But, and not only that, when I graduate and return to the States, as my accent belies, I come from that former colony. No one has even heard of Cambridge. It's quite disappointing. And they all pronounce it Cambridge, which, apart from the disability of being American, has nothing to do with the way they pronounce things, but just simple ignorance. Whereas everybody knows Oxford because such luminaries like Bill Clinton and, well, that's all I can really think of at the moment. And other inspiring leaders like Tony Blair and Nigella Lawson, I suppose, went there as well. But altogether, I have to say it was a much more fun place. The students were more well-rounded and posher, which is always quite socially desirable when you're trying to marry up. Of which I've been the repeated victim of. The target, not the pursuer. But that said, my characteristic modesty aside, I have to say that the time I've spent here was...
Draw your speech to a close.
I will. Brevity was not one of my strong suits ever. But my time here has been quite enjoyable, barring the fact that I went to a better place beforehand. So I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Does anyone have a point in opposition or failing that a life story? No. Any takers for life stories? Points in opposition? Nobody? Nobody liked going to Cambridge. Literally everyone regrets coming here. It's indefatigably shit. Oh, fuck. Okay. Any points in abstention? Means you neither want to propose nor oppose the motion, that you knew that because you go to Cambridge. Self-indulgence. No, nothing. Oh, there, that guy. There we go. Brilliant.
I'm Callum Wood. I'm from Queen's College. Where's the man with the beard who's always here? Where is he?
Richard Parkins, I hope he's not dead. If he is, then I can tell you what he would say. And what he would say is, the problem with democracy is, it's the worst system of government, except all the others that have been tried. And that's what he would say. Does anyone have a point in opposition now? Okay, let's get back to the main debate. First breakdown this term. Second speaker in proposition, I'd like to welcome Mick Adams. Mick is also a third year, and he also does classics. He has a significant advantage of going to Queen's. He's tall. Mick.
Thank you for that introduction. That wasn't, in fact, what I told you to say, but we'll leave that aside. And thank you, Lloyd Grossman, for your filibuster earlier. That was very illuminating. Well, what more need I say to what my colleague and close personal friend Charlie Palmer has already stated? I think the issues are really quite salient because, of course, the admission statistics for Oxford and Cambridge came out quite recently, with Cambridge being, clearly much better in terms of allowing state school students to enter. But I'll move on to that a little bit later because I really want to bring us back to the issues and the facts, and also the issues. So I suppose 66% of Canterburyans are dissatisfied, I suppose, or something like that. That's actually a fact. But what do facts matter? I suppose you're all asking. Well, quite. So I'm going to talk about anecdotes. I'm going to make this as anecdotal as possible. And the thing that's really bad about that previous thing I told you, if you kept that in mind, and the thing that's really, really important is the sob stories, the Telegraph sob stories that you see year after year. Poor little Annunciata recuperating in her hospital bed after orthognathic surgery on her Habsburg jaw. She's there convalescing, and her aunt and her uncle and her parents both come in, and they tell her that actually UCAS has decided to reject her, despite her 17 A stars at A level and her grade 7 polo, and it's really tragic, is the thing, because education should be bought, and what Cambridge is saying in allowing people of who get here by intelligence alone, what Cambridge is saying in that message to the poor little Annunciatas of this world is that privilege isn't everything. Well, I put it to you, and Charlie certainly puts it to you, that it is. Oh no, you can't go to Cambridge in the interest of access. Well, what happened to access for posh thickos? It's a two-way street. Thanks. Picture. I think another anecdote or perhaps an analogy would work well to illustrate my point. Picture a small child relishing a chupa chup. Cambridge snatches from the soft and infantile lips of that child the chupa chup of an education. Cambridge is to chupa chups what Thatcher was to milk. And another thing is, what rhymes with egalitarianism? Communism. And what doesn't rhyme with egalitarianism? Democracy. Last time I checked, I lived in a democracy. When I was a little boy, I dreamt of many things, and I aspired to go to one of the three great universities in Britain, Doxbridge, if you will. And now when I look at modern Britain, I only see two, Durham and Oxford. And that is why I beg to propose this motion. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Mick. Last speaker, nearly done. Well done, guys. You sat through it all. Oh, God. Last speaker is Milo Edwards, who is a third-year classicist, actually at Peterhouse. Welcome, Milo.
Good evening. I'm actually going to open with a haiku. Cambridge is the best, since it is the only place where haiku is banter. And I think that really speaks volumes about why Cambridge is such a great place. As our friend just pointed out, I am at Peterhouse. I've done 3 years at Peterhouse. Don't hold it against me, which is something you actually often say within the confines of Peterhouse. And
Despite that, I still find that Cambridge is a great place. One of our friends said that, he's having, only a third of the sex he had in Oxford at Cambridge. But I think that shows what an accepting place Cambridge is, because that man is still getting laid. And it's an accepting place. It's accepting of people who are freakishly tall, like Charlie and Mick. And even the fact that when Charlie speaks, he sounds suspiciously like Jeremy Clarkson, in voice, not in content. And I think what you really have to ask of the speakers of the proposition is, would they fight a bear to prove that Cambridge was a regrettable experience? No, they wouldn't. Would I? No. Does the Cambridge Union have a bear? Hopefully not. These are all things you have to bear in mind. Charlie, of course, brought up quotes. I think actually his Rupert Brooke quote was, thoroughly erroneous because, Rupert Brooke, Cambridge man, and Rupert Brooke famously wrote, in some corner of a foreign field, in that earth of richer dust concealed. So everyone is really a part of Cambridge as long as they're pissed on Jesus Green. Is very much the view I would take from that. So we can really hold it in our hearts. And, there's also that quote, Oxford was Oxford, whereas Cambridge is a mere receptacle for youth. But I actually like youth and also receptacles, especially little cups. I mean, without receptacles, where would we be? We'd be drinking out of our hands. You can't have a Jaeger bomb like that. It's a fucking nightmare. Tried it, didn't work. And that was said by Evelyn Moore or someone else. And and this is the place that is the home of great men. Stephen Hawking, and that guy in the bin. And also me, and it also brings to mind, that man also brought up the fact that there's people are just less I don't know, flirtatious in Cambridge, and I think that man has clearly not met the fellows of Peterhouse, or indeed the students of Peterhouse who routinely wear cravats. I point to Mr. Julian Uy, who's actually sporting a cravat as we speak. So I think that's just bollocks really. And also as four classicists, we have to acknowledge that this is actually the only place in the world where classics is a thing. Greece and Rome actually don't exist. They were made up by my director of studies. And, I can only thank him for doing that. Because it's a place that's older than lots of things. It's older than Chaucer. It's older than the Union sound system. It's older than the USA. It's older than Bruce Forsyth. And that's the kind of history you have to respect. But most of all, it legitimizes me. People believe my shit because I went to Cambridge. I can make up any fact outside of Cambridge. People will be like, they will at least, believe it for a second. I could say that, Tony Blair rose from the dead on the Sabbath, and people will have that split second of doubt necessary for me to escape from that hearing. That is very true. Tony Blair is our Lord and Saviour. But it is nonetheless a little-known fact. But I think most of all, what makes Cambridge so great is that the Daily Mail hates us. And specifically me, as I feel like I'm often the most Cambridge person. And I've actually drawn a graph to illustrate this. This is the Daily Mail hatred graph. This is pending trademark. And we can see we have an ascending scale of things they hate. Now, on the far right, you have Princess Diana. Princess Diana wasn't on the far right, incidentally. And you can see she's in negative hate. They love Princess Diana. And then you've got weather. They hate weather quite a lot. They do complain about the weather, the Daily Mail, but it's not their main problem. Then you've got Ed Miliband's dad. They don't like him. Ed Miliband's dad, as far as the Daily Mail is concerned, war. Not a fan. Then you've got wasps. No one likes wasps. Fair enough, Daily Mail. It's my jam. Go away. Stop fucking with me, wasps. And then you've got Milo Edwards, quite clearly right at the top there. And if the Daily Mail hates it, it must be good. So that's why Cambridge is not a regrettable experience. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that, Milo. Right, now the part you've all been waiting for, the bit where the debate finishes. The voting in this part is by acclamation, which means you shout. And so what we're going to do is we're going to have a dry run, because I want you to get this right. We're going to have all those in favour shouting aye, and then all those against shouting no, and then all those in abstention shrugging. a bit. So if we could try on 3, the eyes. I feel like a children's entertainer. 1, 2, 3. Oh, shit. Try again. 1, 2, 3. It's even worse. Right, on 3, the nose. 1, 2, 3. No! Let's try that again. 1, 2, 3. No! Even better. Great. I think the nose of 1. Brilliant. That's it.